Commander be better if players ask themselves, what can I do differently, instead of asking other players what they can do differently, or demanding what other players can do differently? Today's video topic was spawned off of a conversation I saw on Twitter that I'm going to loosely refer to. I'm not going to link to or show because I'm not looking to try and dogpile anyone. And also a Reddit post that I'm going to show you and talk through. I want to remind you all as we go into this that these are both human beings that we're talking about at the end of the day, looking to enjoy their spare time, engaging with their hobby or their favorite game or their pastime. So let's not get hyperbolic about how much we are angry about people disagreeing with us about things on the internet. I want to talk about how Commander as a format and the casual player that goes alongside it has a culture and a community of playing very softly, babying ourselves to an extent, to use a word that is much more negative than I want it to sound. I've done countless videos on this in the past, and I will continue to bang this drum as I continue to engage with Magic, with both newer players and established. So let's talk about, am I the asshole? Or in this case, is this person's boyfriend the asshole? Before we get into it, cool stuff to sponsor this video and this channel. There's a link in the description below to get 5% off your order and to help support the show. This post is by Confident Vanilla 815 on Reddit about 12 or so hours ago. I read it this morning when I woke up. Boyfriend has a habit of making games unplayable whenever I try a new deck out and mana removal etiquette. Let's read it out and then unpack it. Full disclosure, a large part of me just wants someone to validate my saltiness, but anyway. Completely valid. Sometimes you might be pissed off or upset about something, so you vent. On Twitter, in a Discord, private DMs to your significant other, to a friend, in text, whatever. It's a completely valid way of dealing with something that's pissed you off. Sometimes you need to vent, have them be supportive, and later on unpack and realize that actually maybe there is something you could do differently. It's okay to be pissed off for a while, as long as it's not disrupting or upsetting other people, obviously. I ordered the Secret Lair deck Angels. They're just us, but cooler with wings, and it came in the mail last week. I was so excited to play it. I got new sleeves and a deck box and everything. My boyfriend and I play Magic with a few friends every Sunday, so last Sunday we go out to play, and because everyone else had already started a game when we arrived, we decided to play a 1v1 whilst they're finishing up. That might be the first hurdle for newer players, if I'm honest, is that 1v1 Commander kinda sucks, for some of the reasons we're about to go into. This is my first time trying out my new deck, which was a big buy for me as I'm somewhat new to MTG and don't like spending crazy amounts of money on cardboard. He decided to play his super aggressive Othari Sun's Glory Rebel deck. My opening hand had 3 lands, a Soul Ring, Angel of Vitality, and a couple of 5/6 cost cards, so I figured it would be fine to keep it. Well, return after I play my Soul Ring, my boyfriend decided to embrace. I then proceed to draw nothing but high cost cards that I now have only 3 mana for, so I kind of just sat there and watched him kill me by turn 5 or 6. The next 2 games with our friends played out fairly similarly, and I just got really unlucky with my draws. At some point during the night, I mentioned I was unhappy that he destroyed my Soul Ring so early, and it had crippled me and made the game not fun to play. And the response from the rest of the table was, well, why did you keep a hand you couldn't play? I'm going to unpack all of this. Let's get to the end of it and then come back to that. I'm generally pretty easygoing about Magic and don't mind losing games, even when I hardly get to play. But that bothered me because he knew how excited I was to play the new deck and chose to mana screw me anyway. It doesn't help either that the last time I built a deck, Shatterfang, he decided to tell the whole table it was too powerful, and I got focused down before I could even get 3 creatures out of my first game with that deck. I don't play that deck anymore because I never get to have a board state before people blow me up, and it doesn't have enough card draw to come back from multiple board wipes. I'm now starting to feel like my new Angel deck is going to be the same way, and I almost don't want to play it anymore. Am I just being a sore loser about this, or is it fair for me to think that that was kind of a dick move to do on someone's very first play of their new deck? I want to add that I understand it was the right move given the situation. A turn 2 Soul Ring is powerful, but I'm also of the opinion that messing with someone's mana sources, especially early, is a good way to make the game unplayable and therefore unfun for them. I like to play to have fun, not necessarily to win, and prefer to reserve my interaction spells with really big creatures or infinite combo pieces. Bonus question, any tips on not feeling like my deck is bad after just a few unlucky games? So again, this video is not dunking on Confident Vanilla. They are a relatively new player who's brought a situation that I think is actually opens up a whole discussion on the EDH subreddit. I'll be honest with you, this is a million times more interesting than the vast majority of posts on /MTG/EDH. You know, people asking simple judge questions you can get with a Google, or showing off some custom cupcakes. Let's dive into that 1v1 scenario. The reason I mentioned earlier that Commander in a 1v1 scenario doesn't work is because Commander is propped up as a format by social contracts and internal policing via politics. Now, what I mean by that is if someone plays a Soul Ring on turn 1, the table can, work together to beat them. The Command Zone have infamously done a whole video where they added all the stats of all the big gameplay shows at the time together and proved that a turn 1 Sol Ring would lose you the game more often than win it, because it makes you public enemy number 1. In recent times, I've been playing my multiplayer cube situation called it's called Party Box. I'm not going to go into it too much, but essentially you can play like Digimon and Pokemon in there as well. They have like 3,000, 7,000 power, and the people that play them often don't win the game because the other 3 players will focus their removal and interaction to stop them. Then when you come down to 1v1, that falls apart, and the reason that's a problem is twofold. Firstly, Commander and EDH is a very casual, social game mode, so it allows you to have those interactions where you ask a friend at the table to interact with the thing on your behalf or help you. 1v1 isn't that. 1v1 is 1v1 and one of you has to win. So one of you is not going to win. And if not winning or not being able to play a game in some circumstances when they interact with you will not make you happy, then you're not going to enjoy the 1v1 experience. Beyond that, this situation in 1v1 is exaggerated tenfold by the existence of cards like Sol Ring. This particular example is really interesting because they are talking about Sol Ring. A casual player, or a new player, shall we say. The word casual sounds like a value judgment, and it's not. I promise you it's not. But they're frustrated that their Sol Ring got blew up. The funny thing is, the experienced players watching this, and myself, as a very experienced player, but we understand that Sol Ring is one of the most powerful Magic cards of all time. I'm not exaggerating when I say it is one of the most powerful of all time. It's probably in the top 11 to 15 spells in existence. I am not fucking joking. That's why it's banned everywhere. I also think that it's better than most of the Moxen, and maybe even Lotus for the ongoing added mana you get every turn as opposed to the burst of 3. That's why Sol Ring is such a high pick in Cube, a limited environment where you build from the most powerful cards in Magic. So if someone goes turn 1, 2 or 3 Sol Ring in a 1v1 scenario, you probably lose that game. Sol Ring gives you such a huge advantage in being able to cast things that you feasibly shouldn't be able to cast until turns 4, 5 or 6 on the earliest turns of the game, and you get ruined. Of course, there are downsides to Sol Ring. It's an artifact, which is one of the most interactable types of permanent in the game, and thus when an opponent has an Abrade and you play a Sol Ring and they're facing just you jamming angels into play or whatever, blowing up the Sol Ring gives them a chance. It allows them to play Magic. Now, of course, there's a wider context here of partner and boyfriend. There's a wider context of they just want to play their new Angel deck, and perhaps, just perhaps, their partner should have just let them do whatever they want for a game to, you know, grease it up, that's not what I meant, grease those wheels and just play with their new toy. But I mean, that comes down to communication, right? You might want to just explain that you want to jam angels into play and just get a feel for the cards, not play something where your opponent is actually looking to interact with you. If you are looking to play a game though, you have to accept that people will interact with you. And when it comes to Sol Ring, even more so, because leaving the Sol Ring to untap once, twice, or heaven with 3 times means you are probably just going to lose that game. Sol Ring is so unbelievably powerful when other players can't off-put it through the political aspect of Commander. Now, of course, the original Reddit post has this extra context of discussions around whether or not their Shatterfang deck was too good. Look, I'm not going to get into some sort of... I'm not going to do counselling for their relationship. We're also only hearing one side of it. It could have been that the Shatterfang deck was way too good for their play group, and it was the correct thing to do to have the table politic and take it down. That is part of Commander. What I would say is if you don't have enough card draw to get past a few wraths, perhaps add more card draw. That's not me being sarcastic, I'm being serious and offering advice here about these sort of things. If you think, oh, I can't survive a few wraths, think about the way you can survive a few wraths. Having things that will draw you more cards to get card up from when you have all your creatures removed. And the other thing that I just want to say here for newer players is that you can also not deploy all your threats. If you think someone's going to wrath, play 2 out of your 4 and hold 2 in hand till post-wrath to deploy so you don't get completely blown out and completely ruined by a wrath effect. Now, the other example that came up recently, yesterday, was someone was discussing how a player at their playgroup was being very obnoxious and was basically just a dickhead. And I don't want to talk to this person being a dickhead. Again, I'm hearing one side of the argument. And a person being a dickhead could be playing like 100 mountains. They're still being a dickhead. I don't want them at my table. But the point was they played a Collector Oof on turn 2, which turned off a player's equipment deck. Collector Oof is a 2-mana creature that turns off artifacts. And yes, this can have a dramatic and powerful effect on a game of Commander. People's Sol Rings and mana crypts no longer work, and the treasures they're making of Southern Mothering Tithe are now just useless. But when I mentioned Sol Ring earlier being this easy to interact with thing, Collector Oof is even easier. It is a creature, the most easily removed type of permanent in all of Magic, and its power and toughness is too. Look, if you want to talk about old school Vorinclex, or why Iona got banned, or any of these big fatties that have inbuilt elements of punishing you or stopping you from removing them, we can have a little bit of a convo there. But when it comes to something like Collector Oof, I think people just need to accept that at a table, 3 people playing against the Oof should be able to kill it. And I'm not just saying you have to play more removal, I'm saying talk to the table, make an alliance. If you can suit up a creature and smash someone's face in, you are an asset and an ally to another person at the table. Make an alliance and ask them to help you remove the Collector Oof. Magic and Commander in general needs less of this what other people shouldn't do and more people being introspective of what they should do. Is it really right that someone can't play a 2-mana 2/2 hate bear because your deck absolutely folds to it? Perhaps you should play a deck that doesn't absolutely fold to that. And I know, I started this conversation about how some people just want to spend a few hours doing their pastime and getting some enjoyment out of it. I know that some people don't want to play on the Pro Tour, but we're not even remotely close to that. If the play on the Pro Tour and be the most competitive, sweaty nerd you can be is a 10, I'm down in the 3s or 4s right now. What I'm talking about is and I've done a whole video on this before, so some of you might remember this, but what I'm talking about is the idea that you have to be a bit self-reflective in any situation where other people's fun is affected by you. If you were playing Elden Ring and you were using cheats or whatever, or playing on the easiest mode, I don't give a shit. It's single player. I don't care. You spend your time doing whatever you want to do in your own time with yourself. I don't care. You can be into all sorts of weird shit. But when it comes to a game of Commander, where there are pre-established ideas of etiquette and just rules within the game, and the idea that you're coming to play a game where someone has to win, you have to kind of self-reflect and think, is the way I'm being disrupting other people's fun? And I don't mean playing Collector Oof. I mean you dictating what other people can play in their decks. Now, I'm not advocating that everyone should be playing Armageddon and Vorinclexes. I do think some of these cards are a bit too much at a more casual table, but a small, easily removed hate bear should be the absolute minimum thing someone can remove at a table. And complaining that people are playing those cards, I don't think helps Magic, yourself, or your playgroup. And lastly, on the topic of Soul Ring and Collector Oof, these things are powerful. In the case of Soul Ring, it's one of the most powerful mana producing artifacts of all time. In the case of a Collector Oof, it interacts with some of the most powerful mechanics of all time. In this case, things like Soul Ring, but also treasure creation. Treasures dominate Commander. They are at the forefront of the Commander landscape at all times now. Every fucking card makes them. I do believe Wizards are making too many cards that make too many treasures. It kind of dilutes what certain colors can do because everyone has access to all colors of mana, so playing 3 and 4 color has never been easier. People blame fetch lands, but treasures are the same. But there is a downside to some strategies. If you are relying on your treasure production or your fast mana, and someone plays an Oof or a Stony Silence or whatever it is, then you need to be prepared for your powered up and kind of linear or glass cannon-y approach to get smashed because it's made of glass. There's this old adage that Affinity was always the best deck in Modern for the longest time when no one was preparing for it, which meant that it's a powerful, like, semi-linear strategy where you play a load of things that are really synergistic and powerful, Affinity cards basically, or in the case of actual Affinity, those are cards that are just good artifacts that interact with artifacts. Anyway, the point is, you are going to smash people game 1, but game 2, and they sideboard in, and at the time Stony Silence and later Collector Oof, you're going to struggle. And if people come with some of that stuff main deck, you're going to struggle even harder because they're prepared for you. Some strategies are powerful because they can be messed up and disrupted so easily. It's part of the balancing factor of Magic. And that also extends that conversation around my Chatterfang deck was told to be too good, but if it was too good, which could well be the case here, 3 players like working together to eliminate you and keep them having an option to play and or win is part of the internal balancing of Commander. Some strategies in Magic are disrupted by simple hate bears, and that's a balancing factor, and that's good, actually. And some decks will get you targeted. Sometimes you will play a Soul Ring on turn 1 and you are public enemy now. And if you aren't ready to deal with that, sandbag your Soul Ring for a couple of turns. There's a hot tip for you. Sometimes your Soul Ring's not going to produce enough mana to even matter, that you can't spend the mana on anything. Don't play it turn 1 because it's going to put people's sights on you. They're going to think you're the arch enemy. Anyway, I thought it was an interesting conversation, and it ties into a point that I want to keep talking about, that I think we can all self-reflect and be better people and players, both in terms of our etiquette and how we come to the table and how we improve as a player. I know not everyone wants to aspire to be a professional or a competitive player or whatever, I know, but you having to step up a little bit is necessary if you're planning to play with 3 other people. Their enjoyment depends upon you not being super salty. Thanks for watching the video. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, and I'll see you in the next one. Ta-ta for now.